All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Alesia, Aloejo, right? Is that right?
Olesia.
Alesia, I'm sorry, Alesia Sauer, Alesia Sauer. Um, and she has a passion for social selling, which is why I brought her onto the show because I think it's extremely important for us to know how to brand and sell ourselves. So she is in the business of humanizing brands and branding humans. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi and hello to everybody who is listening to me. Yes, my name is Olesija Sauer. I'm a business strategist at social media agency. I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years now, and I'm author of a book, The Brand Named You. During the last crisis, actually, I've faced tremendous turmoil, and the business, the very successful business that I had at that time, pretty much over a couple of months, just came into non-existence, and I was really faced with the necessity to totally reinvent myself. And you know, when it's difficult to build your business from zero, then believe me, it is much more difficult to rebuild your business starting from way below zero. And I was kind of forced into really looking at myself and taking the inventory of what I have left, if nothing from the visible success that our society actually wants to see was not there. And I understood at that point that irrespective of where we are in our life, we all have something that nothing, nobody can take from us. And this is our personal brand DNA, our unique strengths, our values, our passions, and our why. And once we really understand ourselves, like fully understand ourselves, and start to own our story with both successes and lessons, we really become absolutely unstoppable. And the fun thing about that is once we really start to own our personal brand DNA, also sales and marketing and branding of ourselves and our business becomes much more easier, because people don't really buy services or products. People always buy people. And when they see and sense the authenticity of people, which really comes from understanding of who you are. And this is the reason why I got into personal branding and executive coaching, so that I could help people first to really understand who they are, what do they truly want, because this gives them the motivation to go and really make a bigger impact. And once this is clear, to market it in a way that the ideal customers would come to you because of you.
Well, thank you, Alesia. Let me ask you this, and I really do appreciate that in-depth understanding of personal branding and a personal brand. Every story really has a beginning. So could you kind of talk about, your story a little bit, where you grew up at, what life was like, and then how you kind of got into the Forbes Estonia?
Well, the start of my career was like an American, American dream, because I got in I started to work as a human resources manager and a steel galvanizing plant. Within less than a year, I become a sales manager, then general manager of a steel plant, selling steel all across the world. A couple of years into that, I started my own steel trading company, which was a great success. And for a couple of years, it was growing exponentially, buying steel from China and India and selling it in Baltics and Scandinavia. Then, as I've said, during the last crisis of 208, 209, over the course of 1 week, the economy collapsed. Steel prices went down 50%, and we had a full inventory of material material, and then customers defaulting on payments and things like that. So I had to stop the business, and I started actually doing what I did best, helping other companies to find sales partners across the globe. I started teaching social selling on LinkedIn, got headhunted by Forbes Estonia, been really doing a lot of things on the local markets, trying to persuade people to actually read traditional media, because Estonia is a very digitalized country. And from there, I actually moved into executive coaching, and then started to help mainly companies, but also executive entrepreneurs to understand themselves, to use it in their marketing, and also to utilize their employees and their personal brands to really make their company much more stronger on social media, much more authentic, because people really want to see people on social media. So that's a short recap of a long story.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about how leaders and managers and organizations can use the people in their organizations to make their brands on social media even stronger. I think that's extremely valuable. I've always thought that your employees are ambassadors to your organization, and so as they live their lives out, they're out there and they represent your brand, and it's a huge opportunity for a lot of us. But before we get into some of that, I want to know, what was it like? What did you think you were going to do when you got over? I know you started out in human resources, and that's kind of where I got my start once I joined the Army. And so I ended up having a career through that process for 24, 25 years, and eventually, became a coach and stuff like that, much like yourself. But what was it you thought you were going to do in the beginning before this, life rewarding journey started?
I always like to work with people, and I've been fascinated by different types of people. So I was pretty open about the industries, and during my life I have been in very many different industries, seemingly unrelated. But if I look back at everything that I've been doing, it always had to do something with people. So coaching and personal branding is like actually the logical outcome of that, because I really can put all of the different experiences, my personal experiences, and also the knowledge that I've got into people that I'm working with, into companies that I'm working with, so that they really can maximize their potential. So answering to your question, I actually didn't have it all planned out for 20 years ahead, and I would never believe where I would end up, but I wouldn't change anything of that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been a beautiful journey up to this point. So tell me a little bit about why personal branding has become one of the most significant tools that we have in the business world today.
Well, as you know, the term of personal branding was first introduced by Tom Peters in 1994, and it actually started to pick up during the last couple of years. And the main reason for that is actually social media, because we all have a personal brand. Jeff Bezos at some point said that personal brand is what people say about you once you have left the room. But our world has very significantly changed, and not only do we have a physical personal brand, but nowadays, and especially because of the pandemic, we also have a digital personal brand. So we have like two sides of ourselves, and in order for our digital personal brand to really work for us, we have to understand ourselves. We have to understand how people perceive us online. And I like to say that nowadays personal brand is not what people say about you once you have left the room, but it's actually what people know about you before you enter the room. And your digital personal brand kind of becomes your brand ambassador, which works for you 24/7, and it can amplify everything that you are doing, creating wonderful opportunities, creating visibility and credibility and also profitability for your business. But it also can work against you if, in case that you have a strong physical brand, but you have zero presence on social media, for example, then that actually creates a lot of problems, especially nowadays. And that was also one of the reasons why we wrote the book on personal branding, because at that point there are many different books on personal branding, but personal branding was perceived by people as some kind of vanity fair, that I am here to brag about myself. And a lot of professionals who I would say have a strong physical personal brand kind of shy away from the usage of social media. And the reason for that is that they don't understand that it's not really about them. It's not about talking about yourself, bragging about yourself, but it's really about creating the same human connection with your potential customers, potential partners, potential employees, just in a different environment. And once people understand that, they start to use it to their advantage.
Yeah, I think what you said there is extremely important. Not only because I recognize some words that you use, it's actually a famous quote by Jeff Bezos about your brand is what people say about you whenever you're not in the room. And obviously that was a great 15-second line by Jeff Bezos that's been used, I mean, in the personal branding world extraordinarily. And then also in leadership too, about presence. And you talked a little bit about presence in personal brand and personal branding, which brings me to I guess my next question is, because you did talk about personal branding, we're talking about personal branding. So what is the big difference between those two? Could you help me and the audience understand that a little bit more? And I also, when you started talking about personal branding, it was almost like bragging about yourself. I also know that a lot of us, who have been in the military, that are in the veteran community, try to remove ourselves far from that once we leave military service and get away from that. And maybe for 5, 6, 7 years, we don't even have anything to do with it, right? And then we start to realize that, hey, that is a part of my personal brand, and I need to leverage that because now I can connect with people because of that. And I've seen that more and more and more lately. So.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, we have to come to a question and definition of what is branding. If we think about different artificially created brands, then they are built on different archetypes, which help us as people to really relate on an emotional level to the brands. So different brands with different attributes appeal to different types of people. So we can recognize the brand, we connect with the brand, and then we become customers and loyal fans of the brand. But if we're thinking about people, then we all already have this personal brand DNA. We don't have to create that. We already have something that other people can relate to. All of our different values, all of our passions. This is the emotional language that people subconsciously connect to. The challenge for us as humans is really to decode this personal brand DNA, because quite often I see that people don't really think about their values, they don't think about their passions, don't know about them, and that they also can't use this in their marketing strategy. I see quite often that when people start their businesses, they immediately try to put a facade in front of them, build a website, build a logo, hide behind that. But this is the worst thing that you can do, because once people see you, once they sense your passion, you actually don't have to sell anymore, because your whole existence is already selling what you are passionate about. And this passion is really what makes personal brand authentic. We have been talking to people in different types of industries who I would say have very strong personal brand, and the majority of them have not been dealing and building their personal brand strategically and consciously. But if you look at this process that we put in the book and see what those people are doing, they actually will tick all of those points. And one of the things that all of them have is the passion that drives them, the passion that gives them motivation, and passion that makes marketing and sales seem to be easy.
I really love that, because especially the last part of that where you talk about passion, I saw that in your book as a piece, about part of that is your personal brand. And a lot of people will tell you that don't chase your passions, to kind of suppress those. And I couldn't disagree with them more. And so I like the fact that you entered that in there, as well as something else that you mentioned, since we're also talking about this passion. And that part of the elements of a personal brand. Should someone talk about their weaknesses, also maybe their lifestyle and their personal brand?
Yes, I consider all of those different aspects of yourself as a personality as a part of your personal brand. You have to be aware about your weaknesses, but you always have to focus on your strengths. But we have some kind of, all people, we have some different peculiarities that we are trying perhaps to hide. But those moments of vulnerability help people to connect with us. Because we always try to, present ourselves as an ideal person, but the reality is that other people don't relate to ideal people, because we all know subconsciously that they don't exist, but we relate really to other people's struggles. We recognize the so to say hero journey, and it also helps and inspires people to take action in their own life. And I always quite often see that people are trying to build a personal brand, just one personal brand for business, and then let's leave our personal life out of this context, the same as you mentioned with the military. But the personal brand that can be like an umbrella, which really connects all of the different dots in your personal brand. So, for example, if you have different passions, different businesses, your personal brand can connect all of those different things. The best example of that would be Richard Branson, who has hundreds of different companies, but they are all communicated through his personal brand, and this is really what unites them, and what gives them a face that people recognize and that people trust.
So going a little bit back to personal branding, why would it be so important for a person to do that, and what would be some of the benefits to that?
Well, personal branding, especially nowadays, it really creates you different opportunities, because if you think about business, then we have to really reach to our ideal customers. We can do this through traditional marketing, but it is quite expensive. It takes time, and there is no personality in that. Once we put personal branding into equation, we really utilize this emotion emotional part of marketing, because majority of people make all of the buying decisions on emotional level, and perhaps some of them just need some logical explanation to justify that. And as people, we have this already. So once we put a personal branding into the marketing process, into the communication process, we really create these additional opportunities for people to more quickly, more authentically connect with us. And if we're also looking at this digital space, then strong personal brand on internet can actually do everything that you need to acquire the customer. We have a lot of different industries and businesses where you would actually not even meet that person, but you get the feeling that you know this person. And strategic personal branding means that you understand yourself, you understand your customers, and you know how you want people to feel about you. And you're building this perception, you are building the visibility, you are building the trust that is necessary for people to come to you and to want to do business with you.
And you were talking about there, we have the opportunity today to kind of get away from the traditional personal branding and use the platforms that are out there to do the work for us. I noticed that you do a lot of LinkedIn Lives. And so is that your main platform, and is that what you would suggest as far as the personal branding goes? Or what are your thoughts about the different platforms that might be out there in social selling? I know that's where you spend some time on LinkedIn doing some social selling. So
yes, my main channel is LinkedIn. The main reason for that is I'm working with different companies, executives and entrepreneurs, and LinkedIn is the most professional out of different networks that we have. But to answer your question, you really have to understand who is your customer, who is your target audience. And once you know that, you also have to look what is the social media platform that they are using, and you have to be there. So if your customers are not on LinkedIn, there would be no point of building this as your platform. Perhaps your customers are on Instagram, or perhaps your customers on Facebook. But we really have to understand who is our target customer, what does he really want to hear, and then to put these two things together, our personal brand DNA and also the needs of our customers, and then find this sweet spot.
all right, awesome. So what would be the first steps for someone to take in order to start doing the personal branding?
Well, I have in our book we put together the 7-step personal branding strategy, which I think that also for our listeners would be a good way to start your personal branding journey. So you have to understand, first of all, the goal of your personal branding. What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to be in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years? And then start from there, because you can use personal branding for very many different things. Perhaps you want to attract your customers. Perhaps you want to be perceived as a thought leader. Perhaps you want to attract employees. So there are different things, different goals, and that would also require different strategy. Then you have to really understand your personal brand DNA. As I said, your passions, your strengths, your values, your why, but also your lifestyle and your communication style, because that will be the core of your marketing message. Then you have to get clear on your target audience. So you have to really create a picture of your ideal customers, just like he would be sitting next to me, and I would really know what are the things that are of importance to him and how I can connect with him, what value I can create for this person. And then once you have this understanding, you would get clear on your message. You would get clear on the value that you can give to your customers, and build on that your communication strategy on social media, but also face-to-face. Then once you have this clear, you have to select the channels that you will be using for your personal branding. And you can actually mix different channels. You can, for example, use traditional media and amplify this on social media, or you can use just social media and then get the visibility necessary for traditional media to really notice you. And you also need to understand how you would measure the success of the personal brand, because there are a lot of different things that you could be doing in order to build a strong personal brand, but quite many of them are nice to have. And so you have to understand what are the most critical steps to take. I have quite many customers who are business owners, and we have exclusively used LinkedIn to build their circle of influence on LinkedIn. And most of us, we don't need to be a household name to be successful with our business. For most of us, perhaps our audience should be, 1,000, 10,000 people across the world, so that everybody in our industry would know about us, would recognize us as an expert. And so we have to find this, path of least resistance, and choosing the right channel and choosing the right audience is really the key to that.
Yeah, you said, there's a couple times you've talked about in this episode already about the goal of personal branding. And so, and I know definitions are really, really important when we try to start, casting out these visions of where we want to be in 5 or 10 years. And then what are those goals, and having clear definitions. So what would a goal for someone be if they were trying to really establish their personal brand?
I like to talk about personal branding as a kind of a bridge between where are you today and where you want to be in a year time. So you kind of bringing your best self from the future into the reality. Well, if we're thinking about business, we want to be top of mind for our customers. So I would say that the main goal for personal branding is to be recognized as an expert in your industry, so that once people are thinking about your industry, you would come to their mind. And this is the same thing that why we are picking certain products in the supermarket. When we're thinking about professional services, it is the same. So once people notice you, you really have to stay there and give them value, so that once they understand that they need your service, they would come to you because of you, because you have been visible, because you have been providing them value, educating, giving them advice, helping them to be more successful. And by that, you are creating this expert position that people need in order to come and give you their money.
No, that's awesome. And I get that. You also mentioned, and so if you have a goal, right, you have to measure success. And so how would we do that? Because a personal brand, we can describe it, we can show up and be that person, right? But what do you use to measure that? So I think that's the tricky part for a lot of us, because somebody's like, how do you measure something that may not feel tangible, like you can't see, feel, or touch it, right? It's not a metric, but what would be a metric to measure?
Well, you can use different types of metrics. You can go with vanity metrics like number of followers on number of likes or comments or type of engagement that you have with your post, and it kind of give you a little bit of understanding. It is also working for you as a social currency because it is a social proof that people perceive as important. But I would I strongly recommend to look at your business and put tangible goals in terms of sales. You can put the personal branding as a part of your sales process and really measure how many sales leads, for example, you're getting from your activity on LinkedIn, how many customers are coming to you, how many referrals are you getting. If you feel that publicity is important, and if you are talking about thought leadership, then publicity is extremely important. Then number of articles published, number of speaking invitations, number of podcast features could be one of the things that you would measure. But personal branding won't really sell for itself. So it has to, you can be visible, but if you don't have a sales process in place, then that would be just a vanity part of that. So if you really want to monetize your personal brand, you have to think about those different parts of your personal brand, how you would build visibility, how you would increase credibility, and how you would get to the profitability. What would be the tangible result for you? Would you be selling your book, or would you be offering coaching, or would you be building some online programs, or what is it that you would actually get out of these activities?
Thank you for sharing that. That was extremely valuable, and that really clears a lot of that up, I think. When I earlier we were talking about, and we mentioned how employees can really help a company's brand, and I mentioned being an ambassador. So why is personal branding of employees really helpful for companies to build a personal brand, and why should companies encourage employees to develop their own personal brand?
Well, as I've mentioned earlier, we buy from people, and all of our employees are our walking, talking business cards 24/7 nowadays. Online, you notice a person, that he's working at company X, and you build your perception about this business based on this interaction with the person. And companies have already long time ago understood how important is employer branding in order to attract potential employees, but also to show to their customers all of the company's values. But employer programs work only when people understand what is in it for them. And personal branding is this missing part that quite often companies are not putting to use. Because if company is talking about its goals and its values, people might not relate to that. They don't understand how they personally can help the company, but they also don't understand that personal brand, that strong personal brand of themselves is really working for them first. And in an ideal situation, companies should really encourage and train people to build their strong personal brand, because the more stronger personal brands you have in the company, the bigger is the reach of the company's message. There are lots of different statistics that show that once employees are starting to share company's message, the growth and engagement is exponential, because people have on average much more connections than companies. Different employees have different types of the audience, so you can really spread your message. And once people understand their personal brand, understand their own goal, and that when you put this into the company's communication strategy, then it's really a win-win situation, because people are empowered, they're sharing their values, they're working for themselves, and company is really benefiting from that. And I know that a lot of owners have this concern that well, what will happen if I invest into my employees' personal brand, and then they get headhunted or they leave, and all my investment is gone. But the reality is that when you have a person who is really empowered, who is working and really using and building his personal brand, the results and the effect of his activities would be so big that that you would be thankful that you actually have done that. And we have done ambassador programs in different companies, and we have seen that even once you start and you have a pilot project, and you have, for example, 50 employees who are participating in this program, and only half of them or even less start to really be present, start to show what they are doing, really sharing their passion and why they are working for this company and what they are doing on a regular basis, then the market starts to notice this very quickly. Yes, some of the employees would get their very good offers and would leave, but the massive effect that the company would get from that would certainly be worth that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And you know, when you said talked about communication strategy, you know, what role does the CEO have to play in basically in the brand, even a business owner, not necessarily a CEO, but what role does that executive team or that head of the organization have that plays in a role, and as well as their communication strategy?
I would say that the best example of the benefits is Elon Musk and Tesla officially said that they have not spent a single dollar on marketing. And this is what personal branding of the CEO owner of the company really does, because people are interested in the leaders, both employees, partners, and customers. They want to see who is this person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have millions of followers online. That only means that once again, you have to be clear about your target audience, and you have to connect with them and be visible on social media, be it LinkedIn or be it Facebook or whatever else. If we're looking at Fortune 500, for example, then nowadays we are still in the situation where well, around 50% of the CEOs are already actively using their personal brand and social media, but at the same time, another half is really not present anywhere. And if you have a company, two companies who have a similar offering, and then this personal brand of the owner, of the CEO, is really what makes a difference, because you see whether you can relate to the CEO, you understand how he thinks, you kind of start to like and then trust this person, and because of that, you once again subconsciously you actually choose this person and this company over another one.
I think it's kind of interesting. You even mentioned this in your book, and when I was reading through that, I started thinking through that, and Elon Musk was one of those people. Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, they're all out there and they're all running and leading, and we know a lot about their personal lives, you know, their routines, their behaviors, what they do. And I was also thinking about just some of the other stuff like Shaquille O'Neal, who is on the Papa John's executive team, and he's out there and he's actually in a lot of the commercials. Not that the former CEO of Papa John's made some terrible mistakes in his personal branding, but you know, I just seen a lot more of them. I mean, we see them a lot on the television now. Instead of, having these paid actors and all these other folks doing their marketing for them, they're actually out there doing the marketing. And the other thing I think of too is this the kind of person that I would want to work for? And so I also think about that as far as personal branding. Am I attracting the right talent? The people that, want to be around that person. And is that person that I'm seeing on the outside the same person on the inside? So I think that's extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think a strong personal brand is never bad. So you get a very clear understanding whether you like this person or you don't like this person. And it's actually totally fine, because once you are clear about your personal brand on one hand, and you also understand your customers, you can understand how your ideal customers would relate to your. And I would say that the strong personal brand, that would save all parties involved a lot of time and effort. Well, the very good example of that is Donald Trump. For example, he has a very strong, or had a very strong personal brand. People either liked him or hated him. So there was nothing in between. And this is actually what strong personal brand does. People, your people come to you, and people who don't really connect with your values, they don't come to you. And it is extremely important that people who work with you and for you really see yourself as a person. And once again, there are a lot of different studies which show that the CEO and his brand play a very important role in the process of employee selection. People, especially younger generation, they want to see who is leading the company, what are his values, do we really relate or not? And it's becoming more and more a trend, because on one hand we have a social media, and then we've been in lockdown for the last 2 years, but we are, due to the internet, we are more connected than ever. And for this connection to really be authentic, we have to have this the personal brand, because otherwise where there could be situations, and I see that quite often when I'm working with big companies, in traditional businesses, that perhaps market leaders. And once I look at their social media presence, both of the company and of the CEO, then I get a perception that this company is not present, or that they're, like a boy and a dog working from the garage. And at the same time, I look at their competitors, who perhaps are like 100 times smaller, but their social media presence is giving a totally different picture. So in the digital world, the traditional company is actually losing its business to their much, much weaker competitor, only because their competitors are more digital savvy, they are showing more of themselves, and people don't really have time to dig in and try to figure out whether what we perceive online is true or not. So from the point of traditional businesses, at least our social media and online presence have to show the reality, so that we don't lose the business, because customers nowadays want to get information in the channels that they are using, be it LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok. And companies nowadays have to be present where the customers are.
No, thank you. I think, especially when you mentioned Donald Trump, having that strong personal brand, and either people loved him or hate him. I think that, what I've noticed, and even I did this early on, was you try to get everybody to love you, right? Instead of trying to carve out that wedge, right, that belongs to you. And, if people, don't like you based off of what you stand for, believe, then that's okay. Either way you go, I mean, we saw that play out in American politics this last few years. So that's a great example and very interesting. And thank you for bringing up some of those other examples. That was really valuable. So we're kind of getting towards the end of the show here. So I want to kind of understand, where do you think, you've done a lot. You've been wildly successful, and you live a fabulous lifestyle, and you deserved it and you've earned it over these years. And now you have this book out. Where do you think you're going to be at in 10 or 20 years?
My book is still to get the best-selling on Wall Street Journal, so that's what I'm aiming at. But I really want to inspire people to act, to really understand themselves, to truly understand themselves, and to really go there and out there and do what they love. Because when we're writing a book, we have gone through very many different researches, and one research by Gallup really shook my world when it said that 85% of people actually hate their job. And I believe that one of the main reasons for that is that people are not aware of themselves, so they don't understand what are they doing and why they're doing that. And I honestly don't want my son to live in this world, and I'm on a mission to change that.
Well, no, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That reminds me of a TED talk that I share quite often with a lot of the folks that I work with in the coaching realm. And that is, especially in the very beginning of our coaching sessions, and I tell them, like, there's a lady named Celeste Headley. She did a TED talk out of Georgia. And it was about finding a mission statement, right? And it was, and she quoted this, probably the same Gallup poll where it says, 85% of the people hate their job, and they jump from job to job thinking that, if they chase the rewards and the accolades and all these other things, like more vacation time, more pay, a better job title, more responsibility, they're going to be happier. None of them are ever happy. But what she found out is through the process that they were going through was, if they were able to help someone find a mission, just a purpose in life. Like, I come into work every day, and if you didn't pay me, I would still do this for free because I love doing this so much. Not that nobody would do it for free, but if you were to and you could, what they found was that they helped them find that mission, that purpose, right? They were 3 times more likely to stay in the same organization, in the same job that they hated, because they had a new perspective on it and they understood why they were doing what they were doing. And it actually increased retention by 3 times in the organizations they worked for. So I think that's extremely powerful, what you said, in trying to make that difference and make that change. So how would you define, you've been wildly successful. So how would you define true success? Since we've talked a little bit about intrinsic value, how does that intrinsic value show up? Where would you find true success?
Well, as I've mentioned, I have had both success and failure, and this losing everything actually made me realize that you have to have this sense of success well before you have the success outside. And nowadays, I really define success for myself as doing something that I love, and helping other people to achieve their goals and their aspirations. And my success would be the more people I can help, the more successful would I become. And Zig Ziglar famously said that if you want to achieve all of your goals, then you have to help other people achieve theirs. And as you said, I think that we as people, in order to be happy, we have to have a sense of mission and understanding of why we are doing what we're doing, and I think that success is a very personal thing, and unfortunately our society has very strict definitions of success, but the reality is that not everybody wants to become a CEO of Fortune 500. Not everybody wants to become next Elon Musk. So it is very important for people, once again, to understand that what is success for them, so that the road to success doesn't stop them from feeling and being happy in the moment.
Thank you for sharing. So, the last question we always ask people is, if I was, or if you were, right, if you were to cast a stone in the water, right, and you create that ripple effect, what would that be?
That's a very good question. I would really want our people to find their why, to find their passion, to wake up in the morning and feel excited about the day ahead. Because if you don't have that, then the life is not really worth living, and it's pretty dull place. And I see this quite often when I'm looking at my 6-year-old son. Small children actually know very, very well what do they want in life. They already have this, Paulo Coelho in his Alchemist was actually writing about that small children already know their mission. But as we grow up, we tend to forget that. So I would really want more and more people to remember and to find it.
No, thank you. That's extraordinary, beautiful. And a lot of us, as children, we probably can remember back to when we were kids and what we wanted to do, and many of us may have began to pursue those things, and then we thought reality set in, and the real world showed up, and we chose a different path for whatever reason. But I would say that I would encourage a lot of people to go back, because that's not over. If that passion still is within you and you something you still want to do, then I would pursue it, just like you have with social selling. So this has been beautiful so far. If I'm going to give you the opportunity to say anything that you haven't said already. You can share with us where we can find you, how we can get a hold of your book and read more of that, or anything else that you would like to leave the audience with before we close out.
Yeah. Well, you can get the book on Amazon in both Kindle version and the printed version. I'm mainly using LinkedIn, where I share my thoughts on personal branding and social selling. Feel free to send me your invite. And the last thought that I would really like people to take from this conversation is to really take time to ask yourself those very simple questions, seemingly simple questions. Who am I? And what do I really want? Really, take all of those layers of expectations that we as grown-ups have from our teachers, from our parents, from our spouses, our children, and to really understand your core essence, understand what makes you alive, and then this understanding really gives you a tremendous power. And this is also what makes personal branding and also sales and marketing much more easier, because we as people very often don't like to sell ourselves, don't like to sell our products, but this understanding of why we're doing that and then really owning our story makes it very enjoyable, makes it a lot of fun, and I believe that we all deserve that, we are use our potential to really make something out of that and create a bigger impact for everybody around us.
Well, Alesia, Sauer, thank you very much for sharing your time, yourself, and your knowledge and experiences with us. It's been extremely valuable for us. And I can't look forward to seeing more of what you have in the future.
Thank you so much, and have an amazing day.
Thank you.